Before we dive in, viewer discretion is advised. This content is for entertainment. What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved figures, a man who has spent decades turning personal tragedy into hope for millions, sits down for what should be a routine interview, and instead finds himself under attack from someone he considered a friend? What you're about to witness isn't just another uncomfortable celebrity moment. This is the story of how Whoopi Goldberg launched an unprovoked assault on Michael J. Fox that shocked an entire nation and revealed something dark and disturbing about the nature of celebrity, advocacy, and basic human decency. This is the moment that changed everything. This is the interview that went so catastrophically wrong that it made international headlines. This is the confrontation where America's sweetheart proved that even the kindest souls have their breaking point. And this is the day Whoopi Goldberg learned that some lines once crossed can never be uncrossed. The morning began with promise at the View Studios in New York City. Sunlight streamed through the iconic windows overlooking Manhattan, casting warm golden light across the familiar set. Production assistants moved through their well-rehearsed routines, adjusting camera angles and testing microphone levels with the practiced efficiency of people who had done this hundreds of times before. The energy in the building was positive, excited even. Michael J. Fox was scheduled to appear as a guest, and that was always cause for celebration. After decades in the public eye, after years of living openly with Parkinson's disease, after countless acts of advocacy and fundraising that had genuinely changed lives, Michael remained one of those rare celebrities that everyone loved. No scandals, no controversies, just a good man doing good work and trying to make a difference in the world. The audience filed in with their usual enthusiasm, their excitement heightened by the knowledge that they would soon see Michael in person. Many of them had grown up watching his movies, following his career from the early sitcom days through the blockbuster films and into his later years as an advocate and author. Some of them were living with Parkinson's themselves or caring for loved ones with the disease. They had come hoping to hear words of encouragement, to learn about the latest research breakthroughs, to feel connected to someone who understood their struggles. The makeup artists worked their magic backstage while Michael reviewed his talking points with his publicist. He planned to discuss his foundation's latest research initiatives, talk about his new memoir, and share some hopeful stories about patients who had benefited from new treatments. It was familiar territory for him, the kind of interview he had done countless times before, always with grace, always with that trademark humor and optimism that had become his hallmark. What neither Michael nor anyone else in the studio knew was that Whoopi Goldberg had arrived that morning in a peculiar mood. Those who worked closely with her might have recognized the signs, the tight set of her jaw, the distracted quality in her eyes, the way she sat at the table reviewing her notes with unusual intensity. But most people assumed it was just another day at the View where passionate discussions and lively debates were part of the show's DNA. When Michael finally made his entrance, the audience erupted in applause. He moved carefully but confidently across the set, that familiar smile lighting up his face as he waved to the crowd. His movements carried the subtle tremors that had become part of his public persona. Not hidden, not exaggerated, just there, a reality that he had long ago stopped trying to conceal. The other co-hosts rose to greet him with genuine warmth. Joy Behar beamed as she shook his hand. Sunny host smiled broadly. Sarah Haynes looked genuinely delighted to have him there. Alyssa Farah Griffin nodded enthusiastically. Everyone seemed happy to have Michael on the show. Everyone except Whoopi. She barely looked up from her notes as Michael settled into the guest chair, offering only the briefest of acknowledgments. The other hosts exchanged quick glances, subtle but telling. Something was off. Those who knew Whoopi well, who had worked with her for years, recognized that this wasn't her typical pre-in focus. This was something else, something colder. Michael adjusted his microphone, still smiling at the audience, seemingly unaware that the trap had already been set. So, Michael, Whoopi began without preamble, her voice carrying an edge that immediately cut through the warm atmosphere like a knife through silk. You're here to talk about your foundation work, but I have to ask, don't you think it's a bit convenient how you always seem to show up right when you need public sympathy? The words hung in the air like a grenade that hadn't yet exploded. The studio fell instantly, completely silent. The audience members who had been smiling moments before now sat frozen, unsure if they had heard correctly. The other hosts visibly stiffened in their seats, surprise evident on every face. Michael's smile faltered just for a second, just long enough for the cameras to catch the confusion crossing his features before he recovered with practiced grace. "I'm sorry, Whoopi," he said, his voice still friendly but now cautious. "I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that." Whoopi leaned forward in her chair, and there was no mistaking the aggression in her posture now. "Come on, Michael. Every time your career needs a boost. Every time you have something to promote. Suddenly, we're all reminded about your condition. It's almost like you're using it as a crutch." The temperature in the studio dropped 20 degrees. Several audience members gasped audibly. Camera operators exchanged stunned glances, uncertain whether they should keep rolling or cut away. In the control room, producers were likely scrambling, trying to figure out if this was some kind of planned bit or if their host had actually just accused Michael J. Fox of exploiting his own disease. Joy Behar immediately jumped in, her voice sharp with concern. "Whoopi, I think that's a bit harsh, don't you think?" But Whoopi wasn't backing down. If anything, she seemed emboldened by the shock her words had caused. "No, Joy. I think it's a fair question. We're all adults here." She turned back to Michael, her eyes hard. "Michael, you've made millions of dollars talking about Parkinson's disease. How do we know this isn't just another publicity stunt?" Michael's jaw tightened slightly, the only visible sign of his growing discomfort. But his voice remained steady, controlled, professional. "Whoopi, I've been living with Parkinson's for over 30 years. This isn't something I use for publicity. It's something I live with every single day. And if my openness about it helps other people or advances research, then I'm proud of that." "But that's exactly my point," Whoopi shot back, her voice gaining strength, gaining certainty. "You've turned your disease into a brand. The Michael J. Fox Foundation, the books, the constant interviews. At what point does advocacy become exploitation?" The tension in the room was now impossible to ignore. It pressed down on everyone like a physical weight, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to believe this was actually happening. Sunny host tried desperately to redirect the conversation, to steer this runaway train back onto safer tracks. "Michael, why don't you tell us about the latest research breakthroughs your foundation has funded?" she suggested, her voice carrying a forced brightness. But before Michael could even open his mouth to respond, Whoopi interrupted again. "Let me guess," she said with bitter sarcasm. "More money needed, right? It's always more money needed." Michael took a visible breath, clearly working to maintain his composure to keep his famous patience intact. "Actually, Whoopi, our foundation has funded over $800 million in research that has led to significant breakthroughs in treatment options. We've helped improve the lives of millions of people worldwide." "800 million? Whoopi repeated, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "And how much of that went to administrative costs? How much went to your salary?" The audience was beginning to shift uncomfortably in their seats now, confused murmurs rippling through the rows. This wasn't the feel-good interview they had expected. This was something else entirely, something darker, more disturbing. Michael looked directly at Whoopi, and for the first time, his voice carried a hint of steel beneath the politeness. "I don't take a salary from the foundation, Whoopi. Every dollar I've put into this cause has come from my own pocket or from generous donors who believe in the mission." Whoopi waved her hand dismissively, as if brushing away an annoying insect. "Right. And I'm sure that's all completely transparent and above board." The implication was clear, and it landed like a slap. Michael's face flushed slightly, but he maintained his composure with visible effort. Sarah Haynes, looking increasingly uncomfortable with each passing second, attempted to lighten the mood and redirect the conversation. "Michael, your memoir talks about finding hope in difficult circumstances. What message do you want to give to people who are facing their own health challenges?" Michael smiled gratefully at Sarah, clearly relieved to have a genuine question to answer. But before he could speak, Whoopi interjected once more, her voice now carrying a mocking tone that made several audience members wheeze. "Oh, here we go with the inspirational speech. Let me save everyone some time. It's probably something about never giving up and finding the silver lining, right?" The audience began to murmur more loudly now, their discomfort giving way to disapproval. This had crossed a line from tough questioning into something that felt like bullying. Michael took a deep breath, visible, gathering himself, and then did something unexpected. He looked directly into the camera, speaking past the hosts to the viewers at home. "You know what? I came here today because I believe this was a platform where important conversations could happen. I thought we could discuss the real issues facing people with Parkinson's disease and their families." "Important conversations," Whoopi laughed. And it was a harsh, bitter sound. Is that what we're calling sales pitches now? Michael's composure finally began to crack. Hairline fractures appearing in that famous patience. Sales pitches. Whoopi, I'm trying to talk about people who are suffering. People who need hope. People who need research to find better treatments, and maybe even a cure someday. And you're the savior who's going to deliver that cure, right? Whoopi challenged, leaning back in her chair with her arms crossed. The Hollywood hero riding in to save the day. No, Michael said firmly, his voice growing stronger despite his trembling hands. I'm just someone who refuses to give up. And I'm someone who believes that when you have a platform, you should use it to help others. Joy Behar had heard enough. Her face was flushed with embarrassment and anger as she turned on her co-host. Whoopi, what is going on with you today? This is completely inappropriate. But Whoopi was just getting started, and everyone in the studio could feel it. She had passed some internal point of no return, committed to this attack in a way that suggested deeper motivations than anyone could quite understand. What's inappropriate, Joy, she said, her voice rising slightly, is when we don't ask the hard questions. What's inappropriate is when we let celebrities use our show as their personal fundraising platform without any scrutiny. Fundraising platform. Michael's voice rose slightly for the first time, anger beginning to color his words. Whoopi, I'm not here asking for money. I'm here talking about scientific research and trying to give hope to people who desperately need it. Hope. Whoopi scoffed, and the contempt in her voice was unmistakable. Hope doesn't pay the bills, Michael. Hope doesn't fund your lifestyle. The other co-hosts were now visibly agitated, exchanging shocked glances, silently communicating their disbelief at what they were witnessing. Sunny host spoke up forcefully, her voice carrying real anger now. Whoopi, you are completely out of line here. Michael is a guest on our show, and he deserves basic respect. Whoopi turned to Sunny with fire in her eyes. Respect? I'll show respect when our guests stop treating us like we're stupid. When they stop thinking they can come on here and manipulate our audience with sob stories and emotional manipulation. The words emotional manipulation seemed to echo in the studio. Michael stood up slowly, his hands trembling. Whether from Parkinson's or from rage, it was impossible to tell. His voice when he spoke carried a weight of barely controlled emotion that made everyone in the room hold their breath. Emotional manipulation. Whoopi, I've shared my story because I thought it might help other people feel less alone. If that's manipulation to you, then I don't think we have anything else to discuss. Finally, Whoopi said with satisfaction, as if Michael had just proved her point. Some honesty. So, you admit you're here to manipulate our audience. That's not what I said, and you know it, Michael replied, his voice now carrying real anger, the famous patience completely worn through. What I said is that I share my story to help others, but clearly you've already made up your mind about me before I even sat down. The studio audience was now audibly uncomfortable with several people calling out in support of Michael. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried desperately to regain some semblance of control over the situation. Maybe we should take a commercial break and reset this conversation, she suggested weakly. No, Whoopi said firmly with the authority of someone who believed she was in complete control. I think our audience deserves to hear the truth. Michael, how much money have you personally made from your Parkinson's advocacy over the years? Michael stared at her in absolute disbelief, his mouth actually falling open slightly. I cannot believe you just asked me that question. It's a simple question, Whoopi pressed, her voice hard as stone. If you're such a selfless advocate, then you should have no problem answering it. The studio seemed to hold its collective breath, waiting for Michael's response. When he finally spoke, his voice was shaking with barely controlled emotion. Each word carefully measured, but carrying the weight of profound hurt and anger. The only thing I've gained from my advocacy, Whoopi, is the knowledge that I've helped other people. But apparently that concept is foreign to you. The words hung in the air like a challenge, like a gauntlet thrown down. Michael's statement, his suggestion that helping people was a foreign concept to Whoopi Goldberg, had clearly struck a nerve. Her face darkened instantly, all pretense of civility vanishing. The fake professional smile she had been wearing completely disappeared. Foreign to me? Whoopi's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout. You think helping people is foreign to me? I've been fighting for causes since before you were even famous, Michael. I've been using my platform to advocate for real change while you were making millions playing pretend. This isn't about who's been advocating longer, Whoopi, Michael replied, still trying to keep his voice level despite his obvious anger. This is about treating people with basic human decency. Human decency? Whoopi laughed harshly, and the sound sent chills through everyone watching. You want to talk about human decency? Let's talk about how you show up to every major event, every gala, every fundraiser, making sure the cameras catch your tremors at just the right angle. That's not advocacy, Michael. That's performance art. The audience gasped audibly. Several people cried out in shock and dismay. Joy Behar looked like she desperately wanted to crawl under the table and disappear. This had gone far beyond uncomfortable television. This was cruelty, pure and simple, and everyone in the studio knew it. "Whoopi, please stop this right now," Joy pleaded, her voice breaking slightly. But Whoopi was beyond listening to her co-hosts, beyond caring about the audience reaction, beyond any consideration except her apparent need to destroy the man sitting across from her. "No, Joy. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of watching celebrities exploit their personal struggles for profit and praise while real people suffer in silence." Michael's hands were shaking more noticeably now. And when he spoke, his voice carried a weight of barely controlled emotion that made the words land with devastating impact. Real people suffer in silence. Whoopi, I am real people. Every person with Parkinson's is real people. We don't choose this disease, but we do choose how we respond to it. Oh, spare me the victim routine. Whoopi shot back with venom. You've never been a victim a day in your life. You've been privileged and protected and celebrated for every single struggle you've supposedly endured. Supposedly endured. Michael's voice cracked slightly, and for the first time, tears were visible in his eyes. Whoopi, do you think I'm faking this? Do you think I chose to have my body betray me? Do you think I wanted to lose control of my movements, my speech, my ability to do the work I love? I think you've made the best of a bad situation by turning it into a career. Whoopi replied coldly, each word precisely chosen to inflict maximum damage. And I think you've convinced yourself that makes you a hero. Sunny host slammed her hand on the table with enough force to make everyone jump. Enough, Whoopi. This is cruel and it's wrong. Michael didn't come on our show to be attacked like this. Attacked? Whoopi turned her fury towards Sunny now, her voice rising. I'm asking legitimate questions that nobody else has the courage to ask. Why is everyone so afraid to hold celebrities accountable? Accountable for what? Sarah Haynes demanded, her normally gentle voice now sharp with anger. For having a disease? For trying to help other people with the same disease? What exactly are you trying to hold him accountable for? For profiting from suffering, Whoopi declared as if it were self-evident. For making millions of dollars talking about Parkinson's while there are people who can't afford their medications, who can't get proper care, who are struggling just to survive. Michael stood up again, this time with more force, his chair scraping against the floor. His voice, when it came, was powered by righteous anger and wounded dignity. You think I don't know about those people? You think I don't think about them every single day, Whoopi? The reason I do this work is because of those people. Every dollar our foundation raises, every bit of awareness we create, every research study we fund, it's all for those people. Your foundation will be emphasized mockingly. Your research, your awareness, it's all about you, isn't it, Michael? No, Michael said firmly, his voice gaining strength from his conviction. It's about finding better treatments. It's about finding a cure. It's about making sure that the people who come after me have better options than I had. Better options? Whoopi repeated with bitter sarcasm. Like what? Like becoming celebrity advocates? Like turning their diseases into brands? The studio audience was now actively booing Whoopi, but she seemed completely oblivious to their disapproval, lost in her own angry crusade. Michael looked out at the audience, then back at the co-hosts, most of whom were staring at Whoopi in absolute horror. You know what, Whoopi?